Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Talking toward the end of that last segment about a piece by Russ Vaughn on American Thinker, one of the unintended consequences of females in the military, because if you put them in infantry positions, in combat positions, number one, that's the only reason we don't have women in the draft. Don't miss that. That's the only reason that women are not drafted and don't have to sign up with selective service, because there are certain military positions that are not open to them. If you open every military position to women, then the draft is inevitable. So these folks that are all out there pushing equality, they're going to wind up bringing about a circumstance where your daughter can be drafted and will be drafted into the military if it ever comes back. She will be required to sign up with selective service. Now, what Russ Vaughn says is, look, if you're in military, you're in the infantry, there is a constant competition for promotion. And that's a good thing, because we want in the military for the best and the strongest and the brightest, the most capable, the ones that have the greatest leadership ability, that we want that cream to rise to the service. And so he says this is a constant issue in the military, because they're looking for things like intelligence, a can-do attitude, leadership ability, but leadership ability is the main thing they're looking for. Now, here's what he says. Therein lies the rub for young women aspiring to serve in direct infantry roles. Even the most ardent liberal proponents of women in combat will generally concede that it will be a rare female soldier who possesses the same physical strength as her male counterparts. The most important quality for promotion down at the ground level where the infantry operates, remember, this is where they have to start. If they want to rise to leadership in combat, they've got to start in the infantry. This is where the initial test of leadership occurs. Leadership at the infantry level, ground combat, where the infantry operates, means out front physically leading, setting the example for soldiers operating at the very limits of their physical endurance. How is a physically weaker female soldier going to meet that leadership requirement? In point of fact, she cannot. God did not make her with a skeletal structure or a muscular structure to be able to develop the kind of stamina and endurance that the best male soldiers can develop. There is just an absolute ceiling, an absolute limit on the kind of upper body strength that she can develop. It's just not possible to go beyond a certain level. So he says, if a female soldier lacks the strength and endurance to set the example for other soldiers, how is she to get promoted? He says, having spent 6 years in the infantry, serving from private to staff sergeant, I can tell you that being able to set the physical pace and set the proper example is essential 24/7 in leading soldiers. They have zero tolerance for weakness, physical or otherwise, in their superiors, and they are quick to exploit it. It then becomes a short path to disciplinary problems. So this goes to the issue of military readiness. It goes to the issue of morale. It goes to the issue of unit cohesion. In other words, what he's saying, the members of this infantry platoon have got to have a leader they respect, a leader they respect for his physical strength and stamina as well as for his leadership skills. And if they don't have that, if they do not have a leader for whom they have respect because of his stamina and strength, then you are quickly going to develop disciplinary problems. If, as we can anticipate, the Pentagon insists on socially promoting females in infantry units on a gender quota basis, and that's going to happen, the military is going to say, look, we've got to have a balance. We've got to promote women to leadership in infantry positions. We've got quotas here we got to satisfy. And if the Pentagon promotes them regardless of their ability to lead from the front, then we at some point in the future will have ground forces that have a sizable portion of their leadership positions filled by people who were promoted without possessing the full ability to lead their subordinates. You know, and he makes the point that a lot of junior infantry officers, male infantry officers, are recruited from college athletic programs. In other words, they are superior physical specimens even to other males in the military. So if you start promoting females who just cannot meet the leadership standards in terms of strength and stamina, you're going to create some severe problems in the military. He says this, rather than facilitating female promotion in the senior ranks, this move, if you make the physical standards paramount and you're objective about it, this move could result in female officers being weeded out early in their careers because they simply lack the ability to physically lead. So he says, look, you can get one of two outcomes. Either you're going to get people promoted to leadership in the military that have no business being there because they don't have the capacity to provide out front leadership, or they're going to wash out and the military careers of women are going to be over before they virtually have started. Again, I just go back to my contention that we should not have women in uniform to begin with. I just don't think that's what God designed them for, and we're just running into a continual host of problems, whether it's an increase in sexual assaults, whether it's officers getting flushed out of the military because of sexual assault charges, sexual harassment. You've got problems with rapes in military settings. All of this compounded because we have women in uniform. I'm perfectly happy to admit that I'm entirely politically incorrect about that, but that's my position, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now, on that similar issue, you know this Manti Te'o, he's the guy that had the imaginary girlfriend that turned out to be a guy that was in love with him. So you had this guy that falls in love with Manti Te'o. One guy fallen in love with Manti Te'o, doesn't even know him, never met him, never had a relationship with him, but falls in love with him. And he invents this imaginary girlfriend to try to establish a connection with Manti Te'o. He's this linebacker for Notre Dame. Now, this is an interesting thing. This is a piece on CBS this morning. Apparently, NFL teams aren't buying Manti Te'o's declaration that he's not gay. So Manti Te'o has been asked, are you gay? You've got this guy that has had a passionate imaginary love affair with you. Are you gay? And apparently they're not buying his denials. His denials are not convincing. According to Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio, NFL teams are still wondering if Te'o is indeed gay, and they want to know the answer. And here is what Florio said on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday. They want to know because in an NFL locker room, it's a different world. So in other words, NFL teams, they know that if you put an open homosexual in a locker room, it's the same reason that we objected to open homosexuals serving in the United States military. It creates problems in the close proximity of locker rooms and barracks and shared facilities. It introduces sexual tension into that environment. That's why we have separate barracks and showers for male soldiers and female soldiers. Why do we do that? Because we want to prevent the kind of sexual tension that is inevitable if you have people that are sexually attracted to each other sharing intimate facilities. It's a recipe for disaster. Now, that's the reason the military never should have okayed it. It threatens unit cohesion. It threatens morale. It threatens military readiness because it's going to be a distraction. You get this kind of sexual tension in a unit. It's going to be disruptive. It's going to be divisive. It's going to be an enormous distraction. It's going to begin to affect retention. We already know that's the case. People are saying, look, I'm not re-upping. We got the Marines saying, look, when my time is up, that's it for me. I'm not coming back into a military where open homosexuals can serve. It just creates too many problems. Well, the NFL knows the same thing. The NFL, they go to war on Sundays. They cannot afford to have sexual tension in the locker room by having a player who is a homosexual. So they want to know. They're being discreet about it because they know they'll just get absolutely hammered and drilled by the homosexual lobby, just like they went after Tim Tebow, just like they went after Robert Jeffress. So they know that they'll go after any NFL team if it becomes known that they've made an issue out of this. Well, let's grab a couple of phone calls for the break. Let's go to Greg, Logansport, Indiana. Greg, thanks for calling. Thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I was wondering. We agree that that the president is not for our country. But other than voting him out, what recourse do we have to? Like, of course, he's breaking all these laws and stuff. So, what recourse do we have to remove him from office?
Well, we don't have any recourse to remove him from office, Greg. I mean, he's done impeachable things. In my judgment, he could be impeached constitutionally, morally, ethically. Probably should have been impeached long ago. Problem is, he'll never be convicted. The Senate would never convict him because it's controlled by Democrats. So I think from a pragmatic standpoint, we've got to put that possibility just aside. That's just not going to happen.
Well,
it maybe should happen. But what we can do, Greg, is Republicans, conservatives control the House of Representatives, which means we can start good legislation, and more importantly, we can stop bad legislation. It's actually more important to stop bad legislation than it is to start good legislation. So we've got an enormous leverage there with the House of Representatives.
Well, why are the politicians so blindsided by what's going on in Washington? Why can't they see what's going on and get it stopped?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, Greg. Because and I appreciate your call. Thanks for calling. I always get more frustrated with Republicans than I do with Democrats. I mean, and you probably do too. I mean, Democrats are predictable. You know what they believe. You know what they're going to do. They march in lockstep. But Republicans, they're the ones that drive you crazy because they claim to believe in things like lower taxes and smaller government and less regulation and family values. And then every time you turn around, you had 75 Republicans out there today saying they support sodomy-based marriage. 75 Republicans saying that. John Kerry was over in Ireland, I think it was, and he said Americans have a right to be stupid. And I look at those 75 Republicans that openly support same-sex marriage now, proven John Kerry right. Americans do have a right to be stupid, and far too often the Americans that are stupid are Republicans. People who say that they are conservative, but then fold like a cheap Bedouin tent in a stiff desert breeze when the pressure is on. So if we had an answer to that question, why do the Republicans not show more strength, more moxie? If we had an answer to that question, we could bottle it and give it to every Republican that's in office. This country would be a different place. Focal Point AFR Talk back in 2.